session this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, good evening. Item 13 and 14 on your agenda tonight are 2 6-month contracts proposed with Kansas City Area Transportation Authority. Here to discuss ridership and all things KCATA is Mr. David Johnson. He's got a short presentation, and then he'll leave time for any questions that the council may have.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. David Johnson, Vice President of Planning and Strategy for the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority. There we go. Thank you. So yeah, I wanted to give you a quick update on all things transit within the boundaries of Gladstone, and be happy to answer any questions if you have them beyond that. We are working on a lot despite the pandemic, and primarily working through some staffing challenges, as many organizations are. It's a tough time to recruit for driving a bus, driving lots of things actually. So we're working our best to increase our retention and grow that pipeline of new candidates so we can restore services that we reduced during the pandemic. So that's the headline. I also wanted to update you on an effort we're undertaking to modernize the Flex service that's part of the contract that you are being asked to renew this evening. We have taken a new technology partner and are very excited to announce tonight that Gladstone's zone will now be transitioning to that new platform at the end of January. So anybody calling the service can now use their mobile phone, not just to make a phone call, but to request a trip using a mobile app called Ride KC Flex. So we're very excited to be rolling that out to you and the rest of the Flex services in our region. We'll also talk about a fare proposal for that modernization, and then give you a quick update on fixed routes that serve Gladstone. So as a reminder, the Flex service that's currently called the Gladstone Antioch, so that is co-funded by Gladstone and Kansas City, Missouri. You can see there that we don't quite cover the entire municipal boundary of Gladstone, and there's some Kansas City, Missouri segments in there as well. We're really focused on destinations and job centers. But there is access to regional routes that connect people throughout the region at Antioch and Vivian, Antioch Crossing, and North Oak and Inglewood, which is the trunk line for 201 North Oak. Currently, any trips on the Flex service are required to be made in advance over the phone, and our dispatch hours do exceed the service hours there, so you can call after 3:30 p.m. or before 8 a.m., but only Monday through Friday. We do have some other Flex services that run on the weekend, so you'd be out of luck making a trip request until Monday rolls around. But with the mobile app, that will change. You can make a trip request at any time, and we do eventually plan the service to be on demand. So very much like Uber. So when you're ready to go, pick up the mobile app or dial, and we can accommodate a trip request same day. One thing to note, our unit service cost is unchanged. We're fixed assets and are a labor organization, so we don't really have any wiggle room to negotiate on the unit price. So usually if there's a concern about the cost of service, we have to address it with a funding thing or reducing service. And as I mentioned at the beginning of my comments, we are having staffing challenges, so that has affected all services throughout the system. We do our best every day to make sure that whoever is quarantined or unfortunately may have COVID, we keep them off of work, obviously, and make sure we try to have people filling their spot. But with our staffing challenges, that's become more difficult. And we've had to take some service reductions as a result of that. So I wanted to note some of the key destinations where people are using the Gladstone Antioch Flex service. Obviously, Antioch Crossing is a key destination, and various other retailers. It is pretty heavily retail here. We do operate the service in North Kansas City as well. Theirs is a mix of apartments and the casino and the hospital. So a little less of that showing up in the top list here, mostly just retail destinations. And you can see there, sorry, that's a little hard to see, the ridership year over year. We are recovering. That's kind of across the board. We are doing quite well with ridership despite having reduced service and the pandemic still happening. A big part of that is a reduction in the fare to zero. So people pay nothing at this moment, and we'll talk about how that might change for the Gladstone Flex in a moment. So our proposal that we'd like you to give us a little nod tonight and incorporate into future changes, we are modernizing the service itself, the Flex service. That's happening, as I mentioned, at the end of this month. We will transition to a new software platform. It helps us as well as the customer significantly by automating dispatching. So right now, when someone calls and requests a Flex trip, someone is putting that into a computer, but at the end of the day, it gets printed out on a clipboard and is ticked off with a pen by the driver along the route. With this new software, all those trips are automatically put together in a manifest. It's done on a tablet over a cellular connection, and it provides turn-by-turn instructions for the driver, which they've come to really appreciate. So it's very much like just using Google Maps on your phone, or what an Uber driver uses when they're doing their trips. We can also do rider alerts. So right now we have to call customers if there's some sort of service problem. This will allow us to message customers directly. Your vehicle is about to arrive, your vehicle's here, things like that. And again, we were unable to do that previously. Virtual bus stops, that's a little bit wonky term, but basically means right now we're going mostly door to door to pick people up. But there's a limit to a service that's designed that way. So with a virtual bus stop, we can create, based on the number of trips and where the trips are going and originating from, create a virtual bus stop. So if two people happen to be headed to Antioch Crossing at about the same time, we'll merge those trips together and say maybe you'd be willing to walk a couple of blocks, and we can fit more trips in that way because the vehicle isn't going door to door. So we're experimenting with that in North Kansas City. And we'd like to see that grow to the rest of our Flex system. Also, most exciting is that we'll be expanding the coverage of the Gladstone Antioch zone to include more of Kansas City, Missouri. This is a part of our Ride KC Next system redesign that we started several years ago and has been delayed a couple of times from the pandemic. But we're ready to implement that in April of this year. It will be no additional cost to Gladstone. And we're using KCMO funds to grow this service to get more people who are low income and have low access to cars in the household. So it's primarily the area south of Vivian Road and I-35 kind of in that area. And that was previously covered by a traditional bus route that didn't run very often. So we can extend Flex to that zone, to that area, and extend the coverage 7 days a week and provide a better service. And it does go door to door as well. We're also adding Saturday and Sunday coverage in that plan. Also of note, we would like to reintroduce the fare specifically for Flex services only. The reasoning for that, we've kind of created sort of a bifurcation of our fare policy. So things that the customer has to work to access, meaning walk to a bus stop, schedule a paratransit trip 24 hours in advance. When it becomes on demand, we believe that merits reintroducing the fare. It does a couple of things. Number one, all the work is, being done by us. And second, it helps moderate demand. So when you open these services up to anybody can request a trip at any time, getting the trip demand managed is a very difficult, the software helps us out. But we think in reintroducing the fare will help with that. It matches what we're doing with our Freedom on Demand paratransit system that has always had a fare. We didn't even suspend that during the pandemic. And what we do with bike share and things like that. So things that are easy to get to on demand whenever you want them, those will continue to have a fare, we believe. And things that are fixed and scheduled, like a traditional bus or an ADA paratransit trip, will remain free. Any questions about that? This is kind of a new policy tweak that we've been rolling out to certain governments who have these services, so it doesn't affect the whole region.
Well, how will you promote this to against an Uber or Z-Trip, that type of thing, to counteract those?
So technically this would compete, but when it comes down to it, I think if you need to get somewhere exactly at a certain time and have the resources to do so, you're probably going to call one of those private sector providers. This is really more of a sort of a base level functionality that gets you where you need to go. You can cover a broader area with that style of service than you could with a bus. The only problem is you can't carry as many people as you can with a bus. So that's why we do both. Yeah, so did I answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions?
That's it for the flex proposal. So it is a big part of your contract. So we want to make sure you understood the changes we were proposing. We'll be back again when we get closer to that service change in April. If you'd like to give you an update on how that's going, we think we'll be able to get there with staffing, and that's the current plan. So I wanted to talk a little bit about fixed routes that serve Gladstone. I have to apologize. I put 233 on here, but it really should be 238. And the ridership obviously is different, but it's very close. And North Oak obviously is a corridor service trunk line that runs north and south all the way through Gladstone, but continues on to Berry Road at the Boardwalk Transit Center. You can see here that ridership as well on fixed route has returned to almost pre-pandemic levels, again, despite having reduced service. So there really is a need. People are still going to work, essential jobs. We saw that especially during 2020, especially early on when there were lockdowns. We had pretty strong ridership even coming out of March and April of 2020. And that's really, we are serving essential employers, and people are using the service to get to those jobs because they have no other option. All right, that's pretty much my presentation. Plenty of time for questions, or I'd be happy to depart early, let you continue on with the rest of your agenda.
Bill?
Just wanted to renew my annual request for one bench per year, just as a courtesy. I think we've maybe lost on that a little bit in the recent years, but as a stretch goal, one bench at a bus stop without a maintenance contract, without a real expensive shelter, just a bench. If we can get one more bench per year at the major bus stops, I'll always be happy.
Is there a particular area that you're focused on, like North Oak? North Oak has more ridership, that's why I say. So you probably heard this story before, that we do have guidelines that kind of control how we put amenities out based on ridership, right? So if a bus stop meets a certain threshold, it would automatically get a bench or a trash can or even a shelter. And so as those numbers change, we do, reevaluate those things. And so, yeah, if it meets a certain threshold, we would automatically do that. So the ones that you're paying for, I think, don't meet that threshold, and that's why you're paying extra.
Okay.
But we'll keep looking at it.
Thank you.
My question has to do with the trash. I know on a couple of occasions, I think I've called the city because there have been overflowing trash bins at some of the bus stops. Can you just go through that again and let us know how often is that handled? What do we do? Because it's pretty bad sometimes.
Yeah, so unlike municipal trash service, we do that every day, or at least that's the plan. And so the staffing challenge we've had have been all over the board, right? So it includes our facilities workers, service workers who go and run regular routes every single day, Monday through Saturday, and pick up trash at bus stops. Mostly that's in the direct vicinity, so we're not going to do a whole area in the right of way, but primarily if there's a trash receptacle, cleaning that out, and then doing any cleaning of the bus stop area as well. So if we missed something, apologize. It's been quite a couple of years to make sure there's also a dramatic increase in littering. I don't know if you've noticed this across the city, and vandalism. So we've been dealing with that pretty much everywhere, and so it's been a real challenge for the team to keep up, but we're doing our best with the staff we have. There are unfilled positions, so if you know of anybody that's looking for a great labor job that pays well, living wage, we're definitely hiring, so send them our way.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
These 3 routes that are suspended, I know there's staffing issues, like you said. Is there any plan anytime soon that those may come back?
I apologize. I should have mentioned that our redesign covers those areas with combined services, right? So was there one you were in particular you were asking about?
No, not necessarily.
Okay. So yes, what we tried to do with that redesign was those routes, thank you. Those routes weren't, first of all, they weren't running very often, and definitely Monday through Friday only. So what we did is looked at adjacent routes and said, we'll make sure those services are within walking distance of the ones we're suspending or eliminating, as in the case of the redesign, and then make sure that coverage is still provided. So someone along the area of 234, 236, and 237 would be able to perhaps use the flex service because it's expanding, or the new 238 Meadowbrook, which has a slight alignment change to make sure these people are covered. So those are going to be permanent eliminations in April. So they won't just be a COVID suspension anymore, and that's because we're changing the route structures to make sure there's coverage there.
And those, I'm sorry, those areas are covered by the flex.
I believe those 3 are, and they were all, again, peak hour only, Monday through Friday, so very little service. So people covered by the flex, instead of this, will now have 7-day-a-week service from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on demand.
David, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
That's all we have tonight, Mayor.
All right, thank you. We'll take about a 12-minute break.
Your dad?
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Monday, January 10th, 2022 regular meeting of the Gladstone City Council and call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please note that all of our City Council members are present. We do have a quorum this evening. I'd like to ask everybody to please stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Fourth item on the agenda, is there anyone on our City Council who wishes to make a change to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, the agenda will then stand as it's been presented. The fifth item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the December 13th, 2021 closed City Council meeting.
Mayor Mellons,
Mayor Pro Tem.
I move to approve the December 13th, 2021 closed City Council meeting minutes.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the December 13th, 2021 closed City Council meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The minutes are hereby approved. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the December 13th, 2021 regular City Council meeting.
Mayor Mellons,
Mayor Pro Tem.
move to approve the December 13th, 2021 regular City Council meeting minutes.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the December 13th, 2021 regular City Council meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The minutes are hereby approved. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. And I'd like to ask our Madam Clerk, will you please explain and read the consent agenda?
A consent agenda allows the City Council to consider and approve routine items of business without discussion. Any member of the City Council, the city staff, or the public may request removal of any item from the consent agenda and request that it be considered under the regular agenda if discussion or debate of that item is desired. Items not removed from the consent agenda will stand approved upon motion by any council member, second and unanimous vote to approve the consent agenda as published or modified. Consent agenda. Resolution R-22-01, a resolution authorizing change order number 2 in the amount of $38,782 to the contract with Royal Construction Services, LLC for the Municipal Pool Bathhouse Renovation Project, CO2053. Resolution R-22-02, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Dr. Charles J. White, MD, to provide medical director services to the City of Gladstone Fire and Emergency Medical Services Department. Resolution R-22-03, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with American Specialty Health, ASH, for providing fitness services to members of American Specialty Health. Approved financial statement ending November 30, 2021.
Thank you. Does any member of the audience request the removal of any item from the consent agenda for discussion? City Council? Mr. City Manager?
No, sir.
May I receive a motion?
Mayor Mellons,
Councilmember Moore.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as it was listed. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as listed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The consent agenda is approved. Communications from the audience. Members of the public are invited to speak about any topic that's not listed on tonight's agenda. When speaking, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and then limit your comments to 5 minutes. Jim.
Good evening, Mayor Mellams and council members. My name is Jim Oldebecken. I live on 76 Terrace. Happy New Year. Hey, this is fun. Hey, everyone see this? That's really neat. Gladstone Monopoly. There are some things I wish to support in Gladstone and speak on. But first things first, I am still very concerned in following the circumstance of our city being sued by one of our citizens. That individual is Bob Bateman. He owns the Bargain Barn and Happy Rock Antiques. I do have some handouts, and I'm using them as visual aids, and I'll leave a copy with the clerk. Mr. Bateman appears to be a serial litigator. This is a timeline of lawsuits that I saw he was a part of on CaseNet, Missouri. There's about 10, and they span 24 years. 10 lawsuits with local governments. And we're here. Everything I present is my opinion, and what I have, I've really relied heavily on public records. But no one's perfect, especially not me. But I've tried. I've tried to be as accurate as I could be. This is the third year since I have been in this room, and this has been an ongoing challenge for our city to defend themselves against the complaints, concerns, and other things from this gentleman. And then a lawsuit was filed in January of last year, so now we're in the 12th year of that. Public records are powerful. Attending public meetings is a powerful experience. I'd like to show you an example of how public records can be used to deal with circumstances as we have now with our city, with this demand in the 7th Circuit Court. And unfortunately, due to legal circumstances, not something I understand you're able to comment on in any regard, and I'm not seeking any comment whatsoever. And neither would you ever get one. But just a couple of things I'd like to point out from public records. And this is going to be just starting with one comment that was made in this room. And I use these to highlight just a sentence or two. In this, this is a letter the city received. On it was written May the 1st, 2019, to our city manager. If this matter is not resolved soon, I am going to dam up part of the drainage area in order to slow the acceleration of damage. He's referring to what is called Cave Creek. It's a creek that only gets wet when it rains. And if it rains a lot, there can be a lot of water in it. On May the 20th, 2020, Mr. Bateman took this photo. It later became Exhibit 4 in his lawsuit, but it's a photograph, and it says Mr. Bateman is standing in 76 Terrace, 3 feet of water in the road. He's right there. It's dated May the 20th, 2020. During this time, and also later in the suit, he has made various complaints about damage to his property from rainwater that comes onto his property. What really got my attention, what got me involved in this in the first place, was this statement in this room. June the 8th, 2020, statements from Bob Bateman to the Gladstone City Council. This cave could drown a child over there at Hobby Hill Park. This is him. That's his property. I'm very concerned about that park next door. A little kid could wander over there, and it's just maybe 80 feet away. It's a terrible situation. He is speaking about this boundary here. These are two Frisbee golfers. This is the boundary, property boundary. I want to point this out to you. This little square here is a sign Mr. Bateman put up. He referenced that he was concerned about children being safe and not getting killed on his property. How could he possibly put up a trespassing sign and it falls apart and it's now blank? I took this a couple days ago. I mean, really? I really ask you now to take another look at the safety issue with children right there, because the cave is just 80 feet away, as he said. There is a cliff someone could fall over. If they throw their Frisbee too far and they go get it, or the dog runs off, it could be terrible. Regarding caves, I got to move quick. Safety first. He has mentioned flooding. He got that from other sources, I believe, because, for example, the U.S. Forest Service, Department of Agriculture, on their website, that's a public record, do not enter a cave when there is rain predicted in the area. Caves often flood suddenly. That's on all the websites that talk about cave safety, especially if the cave is underground. A very sobering moment, St. Louis, 1993. 1 child survives, 6 die in a cave. They drown. This is what is significant today. This is what I bring you related to this cave and his statements and public records. This is a photograph of the channel, Cave Creek, that leads up to his property. Please bear with me for a second. This is really, really important. I didn't mean to interject there, but I just want to say I may need a few minutes extra because this is really big. This here is something he told us he was going to erect. He was going to erect a dam on Cave Creek. This photograph shows that he did. This photograph was taken in July. Now, this is ironic because to some of us who have discussed this in the community, erecting this cave, he wanted to protect his, erecting this dam, he wanted to protect his cave. This backs up water. There's other properties that are dependent on that being uninhibited. There's a risk of damage to their properties, to the park, and then to the road.
Okay, Jim, we're getting close here.
Okay. I have, I think it would be worthwhile to check the rain records for that day. Here's one that I got from the a federal website. This is big. There was no rain in the forecast for the week. It was a Wednesday when he says his photo was taken. I think that merits a serious look. And then 2 more I'll leave on another topic. Has to do with the dimensions of the cave. And this is from 1937. This is from the Department of Natural Resources. They have a file on Mosby Cave. And there's, by the way, Mosby Spring on the other side of the park, which is the outflow, apparently, of this cave. It says here that the average width and height of Mosby Sandstone Cave in 1937 was 2 feet by 2 feet. In 2019, all the measurements from Mr. G, a cave professional that was surveyed, is the same height, 24 inches. These are from public records. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience that would like to address our city council? We're going to move on to communications from the city council and begin with Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to take a moment to recognize the death of Ann Alexander. Ann loved Gladstone. She enjoyed being involved and lending her talents any way she could to help. She served as a member of Gladstone's Planning Commission for years and years, and she most recently offered her artistic expertise to our Arts Commission. Mayor Pro Tem Garnos and I had the opportunity to attend her send-off service on Saturday. It was lovely, and will certainly be missed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. It's wonderful. Councilmember Spallo.
I have no comments this evening.
Councilman Frisbee.
Just a couple quick things, Mayor. I know that we're live streamed to thousands of our fellow residents. So it's just a reminder, all the new parking in downtown area that we went through the expense of doing include new crosswalks. And just a reminder to please behoove of people in these crosswalks or starting to cross the crosswalks. We walk there frequently, and some people are having a hard time observing the crosswalk and the crosswalk rules. I don't think more sign pollution is the answer. I just think some common sense and public knowledge might be needed. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to say a few words about Ann Alexander, but I wrote them down because I know we need to get home to see The Bachelor this evening. Since we last met, we lost our friend Ann Alexander at the age of 94. Ann served on our boards and commissions for 20 years, on the Planning Commission from 2001 to 2017, and served on our Arts Commission from 2018 to present. I got to know Ann when we were both on the Planning Commission. I remember later going to her apartment one day. I think she was 85 or 86 at the time, and had the site plans for the new McDonald's laid out on her dining room table and was looking at the vehicle access on and off of Antioch. Still sharp as a tack, lived independently in an apartment on the second floor, and still taking her responsibility of being on Planning Commission that seriously at that age. Some of you may also remember Ann from her crusade against barking dogs, especially when she was trying to sleep. Ann was an artist. She loved drawing animals, and I know many of us have received animal drawings from her. Ann also loved drawing portraits of people from their photograph, and I was fortunate enough to have Ann do a portrait of me. At one point, city staff was nice enough to put up a large display of Ann's artwork in City Hall, including my portrait front and center, for which I still blame Becky, Austin, and Ruth. I'm glad they didn't find some of the other tasteful pencil drawings that we had done. Over the past few years, I know many of us got to be great friends with Ann, finding ways to help without making it look like we were trying to help. I wanted to thank Justin and the others who drove Ann to and from her commission meetings in later years. Everyone on the street would like to thank Justin and others for driving Ann to her meetings. Ann was a feisty old broad, and I had to ask my mother if it was okay to say that, and she said that it was because she knew Ann. Ann's obituary described her as feisty and funny, smart and sassy, articulate and adamant, and I know I couldn't come up with a better description than that. Ann set a very high bar for independent living as a senior. For those of us who knew Ann, I don't think you ever came away from an encounter with her without hoping that at that age you're as mentally and physically sharp as she was. So rest in peace, Ann. You earned it.
I'd like to address one of the items in the consent agenda. It's Resolution R-22-01. With the renovations that are occurring with the outdoor pool, one of the concerns that was expressed in the renovations, during the summertime, very little shade for new mothers and fathers that have a child, and I will say for old folks like myself to get out of the sun. So I'm very happy to see that, Director Murphy, you were able to find the funds to provide 2 additional shelters with covering for the newborns and for us oldborns. I can appreciate that. You know, when mistakes are made, I'm one of the first people to apologize. To our city council members, we did have a Gladstone night at Oak Park High School basketball game, and it was last Thursday. Being a former girls basketball coach, you know, Scott picked up the phone, texted me or called and wanted to know if I could be there. And I said, oh gosh, get back into a high school gym with basketball being played? Yes. Didn't really know what to expect. I don't think it was advertised, and if it was, I apologize. I didn't know about that, but I should have put the word out to you. Chief Ferris was there, and we had Captain Boydston. Scott was there, and myself, and I don't know if there was anybody else there from Gladstone, except maybe parents from the kids that were playing. But I should have extended that invitation to you, and I apologize. It was a wonderful evening. Next year, if we have it again in the AD, the athletic director said that plan on it. We need to all be there with significant other and spouses. Those are the only comments that I have. And City Manager?
Nothing tonight, sir. Thank you.
Okay, great. We're going to move on to the 11th item on the agenda. It's an ordinance calling a general election for the election of one position to the Gladstone City Council on Tuesday, April 5th, 2022, describing the form of the ballot and directing the city clerk to submit certification of such election to the Clay County Board of Election Commissioners pursuant to the revised Missouri State Statute 115.125. May I receive a motion to place Bill number 22-01 on its first reading?
Mayor Mellon,
Councilmember Moore.
I move to place Bill number 22-02 on its first reading.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to place Bill 22-01 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of placing Bill number 22-01 on its first reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading, Bill number 22-01, an ordinance calling a general election for the election of one position to the Gladstone City Council on Tuesday, April 5th, 2022, describing the form of the ballot and directing the city clerk to submit certification of such election to the Clay County Board of Election Commissioners pursuant to RSMO 115-125.
Mayor Mellon,
Councilmember Moore.
I move to accept the first reading of Bill number 22-01, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to place the first reading of Bill number 22-01, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of placing Bill number 22-01 on its second and final reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading, Bill number 22-01, an ordinance calling a general election for the election of one position to the Gladstone City Council on Tuesday, April 5th, 2022, describing the form of the ballot and directing the city clerk to submit certification of such election to the Clay County Board of Election Commissioners pursuant to RSMO 115.125.
Mayor Mellon,
Councilmember Moore.
I move to accept the second reading of Bill number 22-01 and enact it as ordinance 4.578.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of Bill number 22-01 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.578. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spallo?
Aye.
Councilman Frisbee?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Garnos?
Aye.
Mayor Mellums?
Aye. Bill number 22-01 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.578. The 12th item on the agenda is the first reading of Bill number 22-02. That's an ordinance declaring a 2016 Ford Transit van surplus property and authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Clay County Sheriff's Department to transfer the ownership of the said property in exchange for municipal prisoners' housing credit.
Mayor Mellums.
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to place bill number 22-02 on its first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to place bill number 22-02 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of placing bill number 22-02 on its first reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading, Bill number 22-02, an ordinance declaring a 2016 Ford Transit van surplus property and authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Clay County Sheriff's Department to transfer ownership of said property in exchange for municipal prisoner housing credit.
Mayor Mellums.
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to accept the first reading of bill number 22-02, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of bill number 22-02, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, placing bill number 22-02 on its second and final reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading, Bill number 22-02, an ordinance declaring a 2016 Ford Transit van surplus property and authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Clay County Sheriff's Department to transfer ownership of said property in exchange for municipal prisoner housing credit.
Mayor Mellums.
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to accept the second and final reading of bill number 22-02 and enact it as ordinance number 4.579.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of bill number 22-02 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.579. Is there any discussion?
Mayor Mellums,
Councilmember Frisbee.
in deference to getting home for the end of the bachelor for Bill, I would just like to say I think this is excellent thinking outside the box and use of this property, and I have a feeling that Assistant City Manager Bear is behind it. I think this vehicle at auction or whatever would just bring pennies on the dollar, and I'm assuming we'll get good fair market value credit for housing costs, so well done.
John. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spallo?
Aye.
Councilman Frisbee?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Garnos?
Aye.
Mayor Mellums?
Aye. Bill number 22-02 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.579. 13th item on the agenda is the first reading of bill number 22-03, and it's an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement between the City of Gladstone, Missouri, and the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority to provide public transportation services and property management assistance for the period of July 1, 2021 through December 31, 2021.
Mayor Mellums,
Councilmember Frisbee.
I move to place bill number 22-03 on its first reading.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to place bill number 22-03 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of placing bill number 22-03 on its first reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading, Bill Number 22-03, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute agreements between the City of Gladstone, Missouri, and the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority to provide public transportation services and property management assistance for the period of July 1, 2021 through December 31, 2021.
Mayor Mellons.
Councilmember Frisbee.
I move to accept the first reading of Bill Number 22-03, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of Bill Number 22-03, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, placing Bill Number 22-03 on its second and final reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading, Bill Number 22-03, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute agreements between the City of Gladstone, Missouri, and the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority to provide public transportation services and property management assistance for the period of July 1, 2021 through December 31, 2021.
Mayor Mellons.
Councilmember Frisbee.
I move to accept the second and final reading of Bill Number 22-03, enact the bill as ordinance number 4.580.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of Bill Number 22-03 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.580. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spallo.
Aye.
Councilman Frisbee.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Garnis.
Aye.
Mayor Mellons.
Aye. Bill Number 22-03 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.580. The 14th item on the agenda is the first reading of Bill Number 22-04, that being an ordinance authorizing our city manager to execute agreements between the City of Gladstone, Missouri, and the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority to provide public transportation services and property management assistance for the period of January 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2022.
Mayor Mellons.
Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem.
I move to place Bill Number 22-04 on its first reading.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to place Bill Number 22-04 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of placing Bill Number 22-04 on its first reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading, Bill Number 22-04, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute agreements between the City of Gladstone, Missouri, and the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority to provide public transportation services and property management assistance for the period of January 1, 2022 through June 30, 2022.
Mayor Mellons.
Mayor Pro Tem Garnis.
Move to accept the first reading of Bill Number 22-04, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of Bill Number 22-04, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? All in favor of placing Bill Number 22-04 on its second and final reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading, Bill Number 22-04, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute agreements between the City of Gladstone, Missouri, and the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority to provide public transportation services and property management assistance for the period of January 1, 2022 through June 30, 2022.
Mayor Mellons.
Mayor Pro Tem Garnis.
I move to accept the second and final reading of Bill Number 22-04 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.581.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of Bill Number 22-04 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.581. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spallo.
Aye.
Councilman Frisbee.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Garnis.
Aye.
Mayor Mellons.
Aye. Bill Number 22-04 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.581. The 15th item on this evening's agenda is other business, and is there any other business for the City Council this evening? We stand adjourned.